I want to quote, gentlemen, what Prime Minister Narendra Modi said yesterday. He said it was unfortunate that after independence, efforts were made to erase the contribution of several great personalities along with the culture and heritage of the country. The freedom struggle involved the penance of lakhs of people, but there was an attempt to limit their history. Today, after decades of independence, the country is correcting those mistakes with boldness. Now, is the Prime Minister exaggerating and trying to suit history for his political purposes, or is he course correcting? Professor Sampath, you first. Dr. Sampath first.
Thank you, Rajdeep. Good evening. I think that particularly in the context of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose, I think that the country and successive governments of whichever party have been rather unfair with him and his legacy in two main ways, and I'll elaborate those. One is, of course, in the way he's remembered and commemorated. The other is the entire mystery that shrouds his disappearance in 1945. In fact, I was reading an India Today article which said that a portrait of Netaji was actually unveiled for the first time in Indian Parliament only in 1978, that is 31 years after independence. I don't know why it took so long for the Parliament to actually recognize someone who was actually instrumental in pushing this country towards eventual freedom. And this angst about being sidelined was not something that someone else expressed, but his own family members. In 1955, there's a letter that Shishir Bose, his nephew, writes to Netaji's wife, where he says, and I quote him, "If you were in India today, you would get the feeling that in India's struggle, only two men mattered, Gandhi and Nehru. The rest were all just extras." Unquote. So there was this feeling just 8 years even after independence that the contributions of Netaji were sought to be undermined or belittled. Then, of course, we had this very unsavory episode that for almost 2 decades, between 1948 to 1968, the central government with the IB that reported directly to the Prime Minister of India had placed the Bose family members under intensive surveillance, where IB sleuths were tailing to his family, intercepting, recording letters, and so on. And so this brings me to the second point, that the country really needs to know what happened to this brave man. Why did he disappear? How did he disappear in 1945? Remember, we've had 3 commissions, Rajdeep, of inquiry. The Justice Shahnawaz Commission, Justice Khosla Commission, which said that Netaji died in the plane crash, but this was rejected by the Morarji Desai government in 1978. Later, the Vajpayee government established the Justice Mukherjee Commission, which said that Netaji actually faked his death and escaped to the Soviet Union, and this was rejected by the UPA government in 2006. So, as your reporter just said, I think it's a sad truth that the legacy of Netaji, and like him, several other freedom fighters, has become a ping-pong ball between political parties, between governments. Now, when it comes to the Modi government, on these 2 fronts, at least Netaji, the first front, Netaji being given the recognition, the islands in Andamans being renamed, his this hologram right in the heart of Delhi, Parakram Divas, a separate day to commemorate him. Why did it take so long to actually earmark the day, January 23rd, as a day to remember for Indians? But on the second front, I think the Modi government has only partially fulfilled its obligations, where only part of the files have been declassified, the Netaji files. There are still about 87 files which are locked up in the PMO, which are supposed to be so secretive that they cannot even be disclosed under the Right to Information Act. And so it's supposed to harm India's relations with other countries and so on. So I think on both these fronts, but at least it has achieved 1.5 of its responsibilities, the other half of declassifying these files and getting to know the entire truth about this man who, as I said, pushed India eventually to freedom, is the right of every Indian to know about Netaji. And that is why I think these legacy wars, which sadly become mired in political controversy, occupy so much of political space.
Okay.